The American Civil War, spanning from April 12, 1861, to May 26, 1865, remains one of the most transformative and devastating conflicts in United States history. A battle not merely of armies but of ideologies, the war was ignited by tensions over the institution of slavery, its expansion, and its moral and economic implications for a growing nation. These tensions had simmered for decades, ultimately reaching a boiling point with the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, a president who unequivocally opposed the spread of slavery into new territories. His election was perceived by Southern states as an existential threat to their economy and way of life, leading to a dramatic chain of events that plunged the nation into conflict. The Southern states, driven by fears that the limitation of slavery would pave the way for its ultimate abolition, chose to secede from the Union. 7 states initially declared their independence, forming the Confederate States of America under the leadership of President Jefferson Davis. These states claimed sovereignty and took control of federal assets within their borders, marking a direct challenge to the authority of the United States government. When Confederate forces bombarded Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor on April 12, 1861, the war began in earnest, galvanizing both the Union and the Confederacy to arms. The early enthusiasm for war swept across the divided nation, with volunteers flooding recruitment centers in both the North and the South. For the Union, the war was initially framed as a fight to preserve the United States, but as the conflict progressed, the abolition of slavery emerged as a central war aim. For the Confederacy, the war represented a struggle for self-determination and the preservation of an agrarian economy deeply intertwined with slavery. These contrasting visions of America's future would be fought over in battles stretching from Pennsylvania to the Gulf Coast, with profound consequences for millions of lives. In its early stages, the war was marked by strategic uncertainty and inconclusive outcomes, particularly in the Eastern Theater. Iconic battles such as Bull Run, Manassas, revealed the unpreparedness of both sides for the prolonged and grueling conflict that lay ahead. The Western Theater, however, saw significant Union successes, including the capture of Fort Donelson and Fort Henry under the leadership of General Ulysses S. Grant. These victories not only bolstered Northern morale but also disrupted Confederate supply lines and control over key waterways. The war took on a transformative dimension on January 1, 1863, when President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. Declaring all slaves in Confederate-held territories to be free, the proclamation reframed the conflict as a moral crusade against slavery, aligning the Union cause with the principles of human liberty and equality. While the proclamation did not immediately free all enslaved people, it signaled an irrevocable shift in the Union's war objectives and paved the way for the eventual abolition of slavery through the 13th Amendment. The Emancipation Proclamation also had profound international implications. By emphasizing the Union's commitment to ending slavery, Lincoln effectively curtailed the possibility of European powers, particularly Britain and France, formally recognizing or supporting the Confederacy. European public opinion, increasingly anti-slavery, aligned with the Union's cause, isolating the Confederacy diplomatically. As the war raged on, pivotal battles and campaigns defined its course. The summer of 1863 proved to be a turning point with the Union's victories at Gettysburg and Vicksburg. At Gettysburg, Confederate General Robert E. Lee's daring invasion of the North was repelled in a 3-day battle that remains one of the most studied military engagements in history. Simultaneously, the Union's successful siege of Vicksburg gave them control of the Mississippi River, effectively splitting the Confederacy in two and undermining its capacity to sustain the war effort. In 1864, the Union marshaled its industrial and numerical advantages under the strategic direction of General Grant, who was appointed commander of all Union forces. Grant's relentless approach to warfare sought to capitalize on the Union's superior resources, leading to a series of intense and attritional battles, including the Wilderness Campaign and the Siege of Petersburg. Meanwhile, General William Tecumseh Sherman embarked on his infamous March to the Sea, a campaign of total war that devastated Georgia's infrastructure and economy, leaving a path of destruction designed to break the Confederacy's will to fight. The war's endgame unfolded in 1865, with Union forces closing in on the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia. Following the 10-month siege of Petersburg, Confederate defenses crumbled, and Richmond fell to Union troops. On April 9, 1865, General Lee surrendered to General Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, effectively ending large-scale hostilities. Tragically, President Lincoln, who had guided the nation through its darkest hours, would not live to see the full fruits of Union victory. He was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth on April 14, 1865, plunging the nation into mourning even as the Confederate surrender marked the dawn of a new era. The toll of the Civil War was staggering. It remains the deadliest conflict in American history, with an estimated 620,000 to 750,000 soldiers losing their lives and countless civilians affected by the devastation. Entire regions of the South were left in ruins, with cities like Atlanta and Richmond bearing the scars of war. The human cost extended beyond the battlefield. Millions of formerly enslaved individuals faced the daunting challenge of building new lives in a society grappling with the legacies of racism and inequality. The war's conclusion brought profound and lasting changes to the United States. Slavery was abolished, and 4 million enslaved people were emancipated, marking a monumental step toward racial justice. Yet, the promise of freedom was far from fully realized. The Reconstruction era that followed sought to integrate the former Confederate states back into the Union and secure civil rights for freedmen, but it was fraught with political conflict, social resistance, and the eventual resurgence of white supremacy in the South. The Civil War also heralded significant technological and military innovations. Railroads and the telegraph revolutionized communication and logistics, while ironclad warships and mass-produced weaponry hinted at the industrialized warfare that would dominate the 20th century. The conflict's scale and brutality foreshadowed the mechanized carnage of the World Wars, making the Civil War a harbinger of modern warfare. The cultural and historical significance of the Civil War continues to resonate. It remains one of the most extensively studied episodes in American history, inspiring countless books, films, and debates. The myth of the lost cause, which romanticized the Confederacy and downplayed the centrality of slavery, has been challenged by modern scholarship that emphasizes the war's true stakes: the survival of a nation dedicated to the principles of liberty and equality. In understanding the Civil War, one must grapple with its dual legacy. It was a war of destruction but also one of transformation. It tested the American experiment in democracy and reshaped the nation's identity. The sacrifices of those who fought and the enduring questions it raised about justice, equality, and the meaning of freedom ensure that the Civil War remains not just a historical event but a defining chapter in the ongoing story of the United States.